Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a really intense dive into a highly specific, incredibly high-stakes phase of the legal process. We often think the absolute climax of a court case is the verdict itself, but when we look at the Sharia Court Civil Procedure Enactment 2003, the real drama actually starts right after the decision is made. It spans from Section 126 on the delivery of the judgment, all the way to Section 139 regarding the right to appeal.
So, let's dive into this. What exactly happens after the gavel falls in a Sharia court? For a lot of observers, it kind of feels like the end of the road. But for the legal practitioners and the actual parties involved, well, that falling gavel is literally a ticking clock. It sets off this very rigid, highly structured procedural phase where, and I mean this, a single missed deadline can cost you your entire case.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with number 1, delivering the judgment. Then 2, post-judgment compliance. 3, the right to appeal. 4, the strict 14-day rule. And finally, number 5, precedents and case studies.
All right, let's jump right in. Section 1, delivering the judgment, the foundation.
You see, every single post-trial timeline completely relies on this one specific moment. It all starts with Section 126, which governs exactly how a judgment or order is officially prepared and dated. But the real trigger here is Section 130. The trial judge must deliver a written judgment, and crucially, except for proceedings held in chambers, it absolutely has to be pronounced in open court. So the formal reading of that written judgment isn't just some old tradition, it's the official starting gun for everything that comes next.
Moving right along to Section 2, post-judgment compliance, the ticking clock begins.
Okay, so once that judgment is pronounced, the court expects action, and I mean immediate action. Under Section 135, if a judgment requires a person to do a specific act, we're talking about things other than paying money here, and the court order doesn't explicitly give a time frame, well, a default rule kicks in, and it's tight. You have a strict timeline of exactly 7 days from the date of the judgment to comply. It's a rapid turnaround, right? And it really underscores just how seriously the court takes its own orders.
Which brings us to Section 3, the right to appeal. The pivot.
Now, what if you fundamentally disagree with that initial decision? Well, under Section 139, there is an explicitly mandated hierarchy for appeals. It's basically a clear ladder. If your case was originally decided in the Sharia subordinate court, your appeal travels up to the Sharia High Court. Conversely, if your initial decision came from the Sharia High Court, it escalates up to the highest level, the Sharia Appeal Court.
But here's the catch. You can't just appeal simply because you're unhappy with the result. It doesn't work that way. Section 63 of the Administration Enactment details the specific parameters that actually grant you the legal right to escalate your case. In civil matters, you only have the right to appeal if your claim is for 1,000 ringgit or more. But, and this is an important but, regardless of the financial amount, you always have the right to appeal in cases involving personal status or cases relating to the maintenance of dependents.
Now for the really high-stakes part. Section 4, the strict 14-day rule, the climax.
This right here is the absolute procedural climax where cases are won or completely lost on pure technicalities. Under Section 139, you must execute 3 rigid steps perfectly. First, you have to file a notice of appeal, specifically using Form MS-29. Second, you have to do it within 14 days of the decision. And third, and this is the step that induces cold sweats in legal teams everywhere, you have to successfully serve this notice to all affected parties.
Let's look closely at Section 139, specifically subsection 8. It explicitly mandates that the notice of appeal must be served, quote, within the time limited for the filing of appeal, to all affected parties or their Pegwam Shariah. Think about what that means. You don't just have 14 days to file the paperwork at the registry. No, you have those exact same 14 days to physically hunt down the opposing side and serve them. It is a massive, high-pressure dual deadline.
Let's look at how this actually plays out in the real world. Section 5, precedents and case studies. The resolution.
So what happens when appellants inevitably stumble on this timeline? Well, the highly pivotal Sharia case of Mohammed Taha Benwan Ahmed against Jaitan B really solidified things. The court ruled decisively here. They stated that the notice of appeal must be served after it is filed with the court, and that this service must be completed strictly within 14 days from the date of the trial court's decision. No wiggle room.
Now here's a really fascinating piece of legal problem solving. Because the Sharia enactment initially lacked a deep interpretive history for that exact phrase, within the time limited, the Sharia appeal court actually sought clarity by looking across to civil procedure.
They specifically leaned on Order 49 of the Subordinate Court Rules 1980 because it contains an identical provision.
This is a brilliant illustration of how legal systems borrow from each other to build consistency. By referencing the Supreme Court's civil case of Lee Lan against Lim Yun Loy, where the court explicitly stated the 14-day limit for serving the respondent, the Sharia court adopted this exact strict interpretation. They essentially cemented the rule that filing and serving absolutely must both happen within that identical 14-day window.
But hey, the law isn't completely blind to, practical impossibilities. Take the 2016 case of Sazali bin Abdullah. The appellant did everything right initially. He successfully filed his notice of appeal on time. But when he went to serve it, he literally couldn't find the respondent. His affidavit proved he genuinely couldn't make contact. So this created a massive procedural crisis where the clock was just running out through absolutely no fault of his own. So how did the court handle this? With some real pragmatic fairness. Upon reviewing his solid evidence of non-service, the Sharia appeal court actually approved an extension. They granted him 14 additional days, specifically to serve the respondent at known addresses. And this is crucial because it shows us that while the 14-day rule is incredibly strict, the law still provides formal avenues for relief when you are faced with a genuine impossibility.
Which leaves us with a pretty profound question to end this explainer on. If justice delayed is justice denied, is an appeal delayed by a single day a right forever forfeited? As we've seen today, these unforgiving timelines, they exist for a really critical reason, to prevent indefinite legal limbo and enforce finality so people can just move on with their lives. Yet those narrow windows for extensions prove that the ultimate goal isn't just blind adherence to the rules. It's about maintaining that really delicate balance between rigid procedure and the pursuit of true fairness. Thanks for sticking with me today, and I hope this gave you a newfound appreciation for the intense countdown to justice.